Today, the topic is the computer, the internet, and new trends and technology in web page design. And of course, we have with us Mr. NPerry from Tennessee State University talking about some of the new developments and new technology in computers. And of course, let's continue our conversation, Mr. Perry, by having you to look at what we consider to be one of the real issues dealing with the computer and computer technology is that so many people are simply cut out of computer technology, and in many instances, when we look at the African-American population, we find that many are not as involved in computers as ought to be. And so let's speak to that.
Well, of course, everything that you do does take a little money, and some groups of people don't have as much money as other folks. So you do have a divide between how much money you have and how much you don't have. But that shouldn't limit you if you want to work with computers, because there are libraries that are out there that you can go to and do some research on it, and there are government grants. You hear on TVs all the time about how you can write grants. So libraries are free. You can go there, take some classes, study about how places where you can get free money from the government, and actually open up yourself to getting those computer projects if that's what you desire. Sometimes it's not everything that you want to desire. Some people want to stay local, because if you do go global with these with your business, or if you do decide to go global on the internet, you have to be expecting a lot of information, a lot of people wanting to come to you to
take
get your service.
Take your whatever you're offering. And that, I would imagine, that creates a problem within itself.
Right. So if you're not absolutely ready to go global, then maybe you just take a little time and say, let me just worry about the internet a little later. But it's not for everybody, and I mean, it's available to everybody, but everybody just doesn't want to go that big just yet.
And so there's a need, and I think you've demonstrated that there are institutional support in a real sense for individuals who would desire to become involved in the computers and involved in what we're talking about here. And that it is not always a dollar and cent thing as it was many, many years ago. At one time we talked about the so-called digital divide between those who have and those who have not. But you think that there's enough social consciousness by now for people to recognize, the cities and governments to recognize that these things.
And also, if you look at some of the universities, they do things like, we have a program called service learning at our school at Tennessee State, where they actually go out and prepare classes in doing computer training. So the training of getting on those is available, and it doesn't cost anything really, except to the people that's providing the training. But it's available to us. It's just a matter of being able to find out and ask the right questions of where can I get the training from.
And so if there's a desire on the part of any individual, no matter what his financial situation might be or whatever, that if he has that great desire to become involved in what we're talking about now, then there are sources that are available, and he can achieve as much as he, well, to the limits of his own abilities.
Right. You're only limited by what as far as you want to go. So don't limit yourself to saying I don't have the money to do so. You might want to say, okay, I may need to walk a mile to get to a library, or I may need to catch a bus to the library, but get to the library and try to do some work on the computer.
Well, you know, I think in a real sense, that's what life is all about. You see that there are the desires, and those individuals who have the desire, and of course those who do not have that desire can always find some reason that things are not working out for them. And so I appreciate that information, because for the most part we were still sort of under some kind of illusion, I guess, that this divide existed, and there's no efforts are being made or have been made to close that desire. But now we see that that has happened, and that is happening.
And the price of computers, it's dropped tremendously as well too. It doesn't cost as much Now, a lot of times we get caught up once we get a computer that we think only thing we're supposed to do is play games on it. So that becomes a time taker. It steals your time, and you might not learn some of the things that you could do for a business or for education or something to, you can even find out information about repairing your home on the internet. So it's a matter of what you want to do on there, and make sure that it doesn't take up all your time.
And so, in a real sense, Mr. Perry, the last 4 minutes that we have here, that when we came to you almost 10 years ago, we are talking about, we were still talking about the computer, but we are really dealing with a different breed of instruments and a different breed of technology at this time. Is that it might? Would you say that it would be easier had I met you now instead of meeting you then? Would it have been easier to try to achieve, build a web page and do all of those things? Would it be easier to have achieved it from this point or from that earlier point?
Well, naturally, we can say that it would have been easier now because some of the programs are a lot easier to work with. But you still have to have that same basic introduction experience, and then that time from that point to wherever you're going with the computer has to take place. So you're not going to get out of the time you have to put in to learning your computer and learning where you want to go on the internet. So that still has to take place. So it doesn't matter where you start, it's just a matter of if I'm going to get started.
And it's, the most important thing is to start. Is that what we're saying? And I would imagine that there are many people out there who would like to start, but who are somewhat intimidated in a real sense by it, because I think that that was my attitude when I first came to you dealing with this, that I had been quite successful doing the cut and paste kind of thing, and as many people involved in higher education are doing now. We're still, a large number of people are still cutting and pasting, and I'd been quite successful in doing that, and I had, I guess in a real sense, justified my continued cut and paste by simply thinking that I could not become involved in this, and of course you were able to convince us of the importance of it, and we built a machine. Why don't you talk about the ability of individuals to get parts, certain parts together, on, and simply build something that's might be small, but it's functional.
Right. You don't have to have everything at one time on a computer. What we did with yours, we went on the internet and found different parts. We were able to find a box at one location, and then we found a motherboard and other hard drives and pieces that had to go with it, and was able to assemble one for quite cheaper than it would have cost to actually go out and buy one at a store. Of course, you have to wait for your parts to come through the mail and everything, but it's still well worth it once you put your own effort into actually building a computer.
Well, over the last 2 minutes, let's see if we might be able to give some directions in terms of what you think young people ought to do now. Because I think that in some of our schools, even though some of these schools have the resources that are available, we know that in some of our schools that these computers are still sitting on the desk, and students are not using them as effectively as they could. Why don't you say something in reference to that?
Well, when a student is looking at a computer, a lot of times they don't really know exactly what they want to do in life. So sometimes you can research using the internet. But the thing is, if you're going to use the computer, make sure that you're not just using it for entertainment purposes, whereas it's just a game to you. It's just something to pass the time, because you can really get wrapped up into playing those games and find yourself, I would say find yourself just lost inside of the computer instead of actually doing something that would benefit somebody, yourself especially. And you want to be able to learn programs that would help you in future, such as typing programs. How do I make the letters bold, and how do I type on this to get a document to print properly? Some of those things, especially with spreadsheets, how to do a spreadsheet. You can actually keep up with your checkbook on a spreadsheet. So some of those things actually help you in developing your savvy for the computer.
And of course, the more you become involved with that, then you sort of branch out and
Right.
do more and more things.
Right. For instance, I've actually taken, from doing websites so much, I've been able to get in a lot more into graphics where we take photographs, we actually take them and put back different backgrounds and wedding photos, and take those pictures and put them in magazines.
Okay, and of course, let me thank you, Mr. Perry, for that excellent information. Of course, let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.